Now I move straight to Dr. Stefanie, who is the Deputy Provost and the Vice President for Academic Affairs, and will bring us the discussion on the academic enterprise, promoting the innovative mindset in higher education. The floor is yours. I only come back for the debate.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you for the privilege of speaking today. I want to thank John Glassie and his remarkable staff at Global Brains for making our presentation here from ASU possible and our visit here possible. And I want to also, from the bottom of my heart, thank our Omani hosts for agreeing to host this conference here. It is our first time in Muscat, and it is an extraordinarily beautiful city. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm here today to talk about institutional transformation and the innovative mindset in higher education. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about those topics, but I'm going to use ASU as the example to illustrate how to build an innovative and entrepreneurial mindset in higher ed. We know that the ministries and governments that are here today from the MENA region are very much focused on innovative ways to expand educational access and opportunity for your citizens and to grow research and development within your universities. So we thought ASU's experiences and some very specific strategies to expand educational opportunity might be of interest to you as you pursue your own agendas of institutional growth and change organized around the principles of innovation and entrepreneurship. So this presentation is going to take 3 parts. First, I'm going to provide you with a brief explanation of ASU's institutional transformation since 2002. Second, I'm going to explain the institutional logic that led to ASU's dramatic transformation. And third, I'm going to provide some specific examples of the strategies that we used and that we deployed to operationalize the institutional logic of ASU's rise. So I'd like to begin in 2002. In 2002, ASU welcomed a new president, President Michael Crow, from Columbia University. President Crow is probably, at this moment, one of the most famous presidents in the United States, university presidents in the United States. But at the time that he came to ASU was a fairly sleepy, relatively moderately interesting undergraduate institution. It did not have a particularly distinguished faculty, although it had some distinguished faculty members, and it was certainly the 2nd or 3rd tier university in Arizona itself. But when Michael Crow came in 2002, he brought with him an inspirational agenda to build the new American university. And that would be a university that would do several things. First, it would increase access at scale to promote economic and social mobility for students in Arizona, in the United States, and in the world. Secondly, it would generate world-class, use-inspired research to improve the human condition. And third, it would actively serve the local, national, and international communities in which ASU operates and take responsibility for their well-being. So a 3-part agenda to increase access, to generate world-class research, and to serve our communities. So since then, since 2002, we've made some remarkable transformation. First, we've increased our enrollment. We're focused on access. And so we've increased enrollment by 100% since 2002, and we've increased our graduation rates by 85%. At this moment, ASU is the largest university in the United States, and the point is we are delivering education at scale. One of the key elements, of course, of ASU is the modalities in which it delivers education. So of that, we actually have more than 11,000 students now. Of the about 120,000 students we have, 50,000 of them are pursuing online degrees completely online, and we now have 130 degrees that are available for students online at the undergraduate and master's level. And then on campus, what we call our campus immersion student, technologically enhanced campus immersion experience for students. There are about 75,000 of those students on our 4 campuses in Arizona, and we also have locations in the District of Columbia and in Los Angeles. So while we've increased our enrollment dramatically over the 16-year period since President Crow has been president, we have also dramatically increased the quality of our faculty. And one measure of the quality of faculty are the research funding that they attract for their particular research agendas. And as you can see, since his arrival in 2002, ASU has increased research productivity by 415%, and we now have research expenditures that exceed $600 million a year. Our research programs include partnerships with NASA to send satellites to asteroids, partnerships to produce carbon capture technology to reduce the threats of climate change, and we are now producing multiple patents per year, now in the top 10 in the world in university production of patents. So the increase of access has not diminished our zeal and our ability to impact the world in terms of research excellence and faculty excellence as well. So this has been a traumatic transformation in 16 years. And that has led to a recognition for the last 5 years that Arizona State University is the number one in the country, ranked number 1 in the country, as the most innovative university in the United States. And this is a ranking that is chosen and determined by a survey of presidents, provosts, and deans of admissions across about 350 universities in the US. So it is a decision, a choice, a ranking that is determined by our peer institutions. So the question is then, and by the way, we were just named for the 5th year as the number 1 in innovation this month in September. So the question that I want to present to you today, and I want to provide an answer for you, is how did ASU make such a dramatic institutional transformation? And this is important as you think about growing and building capacity in higher education across the MENA region. So how do we do it? Well, one of the first things that is important to understand about ASU is that we have in a leader he's a very focused, very dramatically effective leader, and he has trained the other leaders in the institution to think like designers rather than administrators. And so everything we do as we build the institution, we think about the institutional design, the structure of our units, of our programs, of our delivery methods in terms of institutional design as opposed to administering a university. And we are guided in our design of the university by 8 aspirations that are critical to our thinking, that can be quoted, in fact, by many of the faculty, staff, and leadership at the university. And these design aspirations shape everything we do, from programming to outreach, to partnerships, to curriculum. These design aspirations are always foremost in our mind as we think about what we're doing. And by having these design aspirations at the forefront of our thinking, it helps us channel toward an institution that has a single-minded objective across all of our faculty and staff and leadership. So we self-consciously think about like designers with the effort to achieve access, excellence, and community service. We also follow what we call a new institutional logic. So this slide helps understand that logic, and what it shows is that traditionally, universities have followed one of 3 institutional logics. The first is the logic of the academy model. This is the Greek academy. My apologies to Cambridge. I realize you're here. I didn't realize you'd be here, but you are on this slide. The academy model is the model of an elite small university that serves the very, very most elite selective students that come to the university in a particular country. And it's a wonderful model, certainly, for delivering education. The problem is it's too small. It's too small. It does not operate at scale. And given the growing populations of young people who need education around the world, the academy model is not going to be sufficient. The second model here is the state control model. This is the model of education that is provided by the government and that is controlled by the government and funded by the government. And often the state agency model, as we've seen in the United States in any event, we've seen that that model produces and can produce very bureaucratic institutions that are dependent on the state for their funding, and therefore they do not think entrepreneurially and innovatively about how to find resources. Third, in the United States, we have experimented with for-profit education. And sadly, in the United States, there was great promise there, but it has not worked out very well in the US because it has not produced great outcomes for students. So these three models fail in certain ways. They're certainly successful in other ways. But in terms of the agenda of ASU, to provide access to a growing population of young people who need access to higher education, those three models simply don't work. And so we had to create a new model, and we're calling it the enterprise model of education, of university education, focused on social transformation and economic success of its students. And most importantly, focused, one might say, perhaps it's most important, but it's certainly important to our entrepreneurial mindset. We are focused on revenue generation because we do not receive funding from the state in any substantial way. So the state of Arizona, even though we are an Arizona State University, the state of Arizona actually only funds our operations to the point of 10% of our operating budget. We have an operating budget of $3.4 billion, and $300 million of that come from the state of Arizona. We immediately funnel that money directly to student scholarships. So we do not use our state funding in any way toward our operating budget, toward our teacher salaries or faculty salaries. It simply goes to student scholarships. So how are we going to get the rest of the money we need while keeping tuition at a reasonable rate? If we're going to be focused on access, we can't have excessively expensive tuition. So we need to think entrepreneurially about how to develop revenue streams to support our operations. And not only to support our educational operations, but to support our research operations, to be sure that we continue to be productive and impactful in our research to improve the human condition. So how do we think entrepreneurially, innovatively at ASU about how to generate revenue and how to have an impact on the world outside of the university? And we have, what I have presented on these slides are 5 sample strategies. These are 5 samples. We have so many more we'd be happy to share with you, but these are 5 samples that I thought you'd be particularly interested in. They are uniquely innovative, and I would argue that there is not a single university in the world that follows these kinds and this kinds of combination of strategies like you'll see at ASU. So I think they're extremely informational and interesting as we think about how are we going to grow our universities to be most effective. So the first example of our strategy is that we create our own corporate spin-offs. We have a corporate arm of the university that accepts donations from our donors. We call it the ASU Foundation. And since that's a corporation itself, it is in a position to partner with other venture capitalists or investors to create new corporations. So this strategy helps to enlarge and expand educational opportunity by partnering with for-profit public benefit corporations with whom we co-create corporations to further our interests, and we take an equity interest in those corporations. So there are 2 examples on this slide about which we're very excited. They're fairly new. The first is Centana. Centana is a corporation formed in partnership with the former CEO of Laureate Education Incorporated, Doug Becker. And it is a corporation aimed at building or growing universities around the world that will be powered by the ASU intellectual and digital assets. And we're very excited about this opportunity because we're often approached by potential partners around the world to help expand ASU educational opportunities outside the United States. And now we have a partner with experience and understanding about how to do this around the world. And I just want to point out my colleague, Wadia Atio, is here from Centana, is sitting here. You might raise your hand, Wadia. We're one of our wonderful partners now at Centana, and we're very excited about this new initiative. The second corporation that we co-created with a venture capital fund is called InStride. And at ASU, we're very concerned about ensuring that we can deploy and move our educational assets not only to reach the student at 20 and 25 years old, but also to reach people during their working lives so that they can continue to improve their social and economic mobility through higher education. And one way we've done that is by partnering with corporations to make ASU's online programs available to employees as one of many other employee benefits for particular corporations. A great example of this is with Starbucks Corporation, which I'm sure all of you have had coffee at a Starbucks or some other kind of drink at one point in your life. They're a global corporation with hundreds of thousands of employees. And they've partnered with us to be sure that all of those employees can continue their education at ASU while employed at Starbucks. And they receive that education free because Starbucks covers the tuition. We've also created a similar program with Uber. Uber drivers now also have access to ASU education funded by the Uber Corporation. And the idea here is that InStride will operate as our sales force to work with corporations to sell our educational assets to these corporations for the benefit of their employees. So InStride helps extend our reach into the corporate community, extend our reach to students who might not otherwise have access to education through our online programs. Very excited about our corporate spin-offs. In addition, I think you'll find it interesting how we leverage our real estate. Many universities have real estate. They're either donated real estate by their philanthropic donors, or they have real estate that was deeded to them by the state or by their local governments. And we, of course, have quite a lot of real estate around Phoenix, the Phoenix area. And we've thought about ways to invest that real estate, to leverage the real estate to generate a stream of revenue to the university, but also to enhance the university and the university community. And one of the most exciting new projects we have is Mirabella, ASU at Mirabella, or Mirabella at ASU. And this is a senior citizen living condominium building for senior citizen retirees who come to live on the campus in a magnificent luxury building, frankly. And what they benefit from is living in a university campus and having access to our faculty, to our students, to our programs, to our cultural events. So it's wonderful and enrichment for them. It's also fabulous for us, for the university community, because now the university is not only diverse in many ways as we are internationally and in terms of the backgrounds of our students, but it's also now diverse because we have senior citizens on our campus. And this building generates a stream of revenue in lease payments to the university. It is built on university-owned real estate in partnership with a private company who invested all of the money to put up the building. So what a match made in heaven. We are generating revenue for the university. We are enriching the lives of retirees who want to come and live on our campus. And we are enriching the educational experience for our students who are now being exposed to people of all ages on the campus and not just people that look like them and are of their age. In addition to leveraging our real estate and spinning off corporations, which is just frankly an interesting thing to say if you're a university leader, think about a university creating corporations on its own, which of course our faculty do as well, and I'll get to that in a minute. But one of the other strategies that we've used is to try to think about how are we going to expand access and opportunity when universities are so terribly siloed around the world. We know that our departments within universities can be very siloed. That's problematic. But it's also problematic to think that universities themselves rarely reach out and collaborate in meaningful ways with other universities. And what a shame that is, simply because we can absolutely increase our impact. I think the whole is much greater than the sum of the parts if we're able to create alliances among universities. And so ASU has created the PLUS Alliance. P stands for Phoenix, L stands for London, S stands for Sydney. And this is a separate organization that serves these three organizations and takes advantage of their faculty, their students, their assets to build something greater, as I said, the whole greater than the sum of its parts. One example of our programs that we're building through the Plus Alliance is a new engineering school in London, focused on applied engineering with gender balance. I so appreciated Patrick's video about the importance of enhancing gender equality in education, and that is what the Plus Alliance will be doing in engineering education, first in London, and then with a separately accredited school elsewhere. We also try to build networks. So again, we want to eliminate siloing among universities, but we also want to bring together and harness the power and the dynamism of the private sector and build bridges from the university to the private sector. At ASU, we've benefited greatly from our partnerships with educational technology companies. And so we thought, why don't we build a summit? And we'll build a summit that's in partnership with the global Silicon Valley, and we'll invite to that summit up-and-coming technology companies along with venture capitalists and bring the money and the ideas into the same room. And this has been a remarkably effective program. It's been now going for 10 years. It welcomes about 5,000 people to our various venues. My colleague, Julia Rosen, who's also with me, she is the originator of ASU GSV, and it has attracted, as you can see from the pictures, not only presidents of the United States, but also Academy Award-winning actors in Michael McConaughey and billionaire philanthropists. So network development has been very important to our strategy, and we've done that around the United States as well by, again, eliminating those silos and building an innovation alliance across other state universities in the United States. These universities meet frequently, talk about technological advancements that can enhance student success, and in general, they are force multipliers for all of us as we develop our programs to increase our impact. Finally, I want to talk about technology-enabled access. I've talked to you about Uber and Starbucks, but I must tell you about this neat partnership with Amazon. We developed a new engineering school, and in that engineering school, we wanted students to have access to real-time answers to their engineering questions. So we put an Amazon dot in every engineering dorm room, and that Amazon dot has been programmed with answers to engineering questions. So now you can ask Alexa what the tensile strength of steel, or whatever your engineering question is. I'm not an engineer, by the way, but you can ask Alexa for an answer to your engineering question, and it'll be answered on the dot on your classroom. So leveraging technology for the benefit of our students. In closing, I just want to say the following. Demand for education is going to grow substantially in this world in the next, by 2030, as you can see, up to 415 million students will need higher education. And we calculated that to meet that need, the world would have to build 10 universities, for each serving 25,000 students every week, every year for 15 years. We need to get on it. And one way we can do it is to deploy some strategies to expand the impact of the university, to grow the university, and to harness and leverage the dynamism of the private sector to help universities succeed. So I hope you found some of these examples helpful, and I thank you so much for your time and interest. Thank you.
Okay, please. First question.
Thank you very much. Well, it's more of a comment than a question. Thank you, Stefanie, for your presentation, and certainly the other presentations this morning, very useful, very informative. As Stefanie mentioned, I mean, the dimension of access is extremely important because, correctly put, we're looking at over 400 million students in higher education across the world by 2030. What she didn't mention is that this is going to increase every decade another 100 million. So we're talking at the number of students are increasing at an exponential pace, and this has to be handled. Obviously, online is one solution, obviously quality online education, and more universities such as ASU are providing very high quality online program. When I say online, I'm not talking about MOOCs, I'm talking about full-fledged undergraduate programs, master's programs, and some PhD programs in specific specializations. So this is definitely a huge challenge for higher education across the globe. Obviously, a change only as strong as its weakest link. So when we talk about the education chain, I'm glad some of the presentations were on K-12 and obviously vocation and technical education, which was not mentioned by anyone, higher education, and somebody alluded a bit about lifelong learning and continuing education, which I think is not just important, but essential, because when somebody gets a degree from a university, even a top university, things go out of date. If you're not, up to date with the pace of changing technology. I'm a computer engineer, so it's even worse in that field. You have to keep up to date. Continuing education, lifelong learning is one way to do that. So when we talk about change in our education system, whether it's curricula-based or training for faculty at K-12. I mean, I've been a professor at the American University of Beirut. I'm vice president there now, and I was never given any training how to teach. I was just thrown there like everybody else. And these are all considerations to be taken into mind. But any change in any one of these chains have to trickle through to the other components. So when we consider changing curricula or any other aspect of the overall education chain, we have to look at the overall picture, not just preschool or K-12 or just undergraduate programs. A lot of the surveys carried out by international companies today show more and more that the weaknesses, the problems that they face with graduates that are hired, new graduates that are hired by these companies is not subject matter expertise. It's the soft skills that were referred to. So in order to graduate, graduates that are not just seeking a job but create a job that will be change agents in their societies, in the world, this general education component has to be considered in all universities. And as Hanan mentioned, she mentioned 500 universities. I don't know if she was referring to the Middle East or region. Actually, there are over 1,200 higher education institutions in our MENA region, and only 5% of those provide this necessary, essential general education component, which sometimes represent over a third of the number of credits you take in any undergraduate program. So you can be a great engineer, but if you don't have the communication skills, what's the point? The same applies to all the other skills in the general education area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I'd like to respond on 2 points. One is on the need to train faculty and teachers, especially if they're teaching in new modalities such as online. That is absolutely important and critical. And at ASU, we've built an entire infrastructure, we call it Ed+, around our online delivery programs, where we have instructional designers and support staff for students. Those support staff are there simply to talk to students about managing and balancing work, life, school. They're not there to teach, so they have an emotional kind of the emotional intelligence part of the university there on the phone with them whenever they need it. Plus, we train faculty to teach because it is a different kind of teaching that one does online as opposed to in the classroom. So I think that's a great point. The second point I want to make is online is definitely a hugely important delivery mechanism for the future. It's one way we're going to reach all of these students and reach people who have left college age and now want to retool, upskill, et cetera. But one of the issues will be, how do we make a pathway for students into a higher education? Oftentimes students, for example, might not have done well in high school. They may have dropped out of high school. How do we get them back up to the point of being able to go into college? And one little example of that what we've done at ASU is develop something called the Global Freshman Academy. And it's a series of MOOC courses that can be taken for credit. And if you do well enough in the course, it will provide you with earned access and admission to the university. So it is a pathway a bridge that can take you from where you are into university admission. So I recommend the Global Freshman Academy if to take a look at it. It's a very interesting program.
Thank you. Another question?
Thank you, Stefanie, for the presentations. And I would like first to start with thanking you and ASU for the enriching experience that our students are getting in ASU.
We thank you for sending them to us very much.
I have two comments. One of them, it was very impressive increase in access, and I was wondering what was the percentage of or how much that this access is distributed among online and in-campus courses. And the other one, do you have any statistics on the employability of the students finishing the online degrees compared to the traditional mode of delivery?
Sure. Well, a large percentage of our increase is from our online program. So online programming really was very much in its fledgling state in 2002. We might have had a couple of 100 students online, and now we have close to 50,000 online. So you can see that is an enormous percentage of the growth, although we also have grown our campuses substantially as well. So I think the campuses have grown from about 50,000 to 75,000 in this period of time. And we hope, our aspiration is to have 100,000 students online and 100,000 students on our campus, and then we'll see what we need to do next. I don't know. Our president will then find some new other aspiration for us to meet. In terms of employability, we have had excellent success with our online students and employability. In fact, the Wall Street Journal last year ranked us in the top 10 of employability, and that included, of student employability, and that included online students. So and our online students are usually themselves already quite distinguished in their careers, and then they decide to come back to get a master's degree, a second bachelor's degree, finish their bachelor's degree. So many of them have already made progress in their careers, and I think the average age of our online students is about 30 to 32 years old. So thank you so much, and thank you again for sending your students to ASU.
Thank you.
Hi, Professor Imangad, the Dean of the Faculty of Education at the British University in Dubai. Thank you very much for an inspiring presentation. I was wondering, what is it that you do for what we refer as people of determination, students with special needs and disabilities? I'm sure you have a wide variety of accessibility options. Can you just run through some of them? I'm very aware of the time, so if you just do this briefly, I'll be very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We consider diversity in all of its dimensions, and that includes students with disabilities, and we are very concerned about ensuring that they have access, for example, to online education as well as our campus experience. And a lot of our materials are available for those who are blind. They can listen to the materials online, so we've ensured that anybody, whether they have hearing impaired or blind, can still take advantage of our online programs. And we have an entire disability service office on the campus to assist in test taking, in access issues. Our entire campus, of course, is made accessible to anyone in a wheelchair. So we think about that as part of student diversity in its many wonderful dimensions.
I was wondering about dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia. It's the unseen disability rather than the obvious disabilities. Do you have any specific unit for something like this?
We do. It's just called Disability Services. Okay. And I'd be happy to share with you some information or put you in contact with a person there who might be more useful than I am in terms of the details of how they operate.
I'm aware of the time as well. Just a quick comment about your last slide, Stefanie, about the need for expansion for the universities and the need for the more enrollment for these 18, 23 years old. But I think I've got some concern about our MENA region, and specifically, for example, in Iraq. I mean, yes, we need a lot of students to be enrolled, and we need expansion of universities, but are we really preparing these students for the marketplace? Because you end up with a lot of graduate, but actually there isn't any employment for them. So I'm just wondering is to need to be careful about expansion of the universities unless you prepare them with the skills needed for the 21st century. Thank you.
That is so absolutely true. And one way we thought about addressing that, and we go about addressing that at ASU, is that we co-create curriculum with people in industry. So that, for example, we just created a master's degree in international development with one of the largest international development firms in the world. And they created the curriculum and identified the readings, et cetera, along with us, so that we knew for sure that the students were getting the things they would need in the real world of international development. So I agree, it has to be thoughtfully done so that the students are not simply graduating with a piece of paper. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Stefanie.
Thank you.
For your great presentation and to promote the debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with no further ado, just want to say that we have now the coffee.
Okay,
Oh,
well, I'll
John.
just say a few
Okay.
words.
Okay, please.
Thank you very much, Mario, for doing that, and thank you very much, Dr. Stefanie, indeed. And thank you to everybody who's spoken so far this morning. Just a couple of points, something remiss of me early on this morning. It's very important to thank the Diamond partners who are here doing their presentations, making this to this day possible, and very much important making this event possible. Omantel, Cambridge Education Development Trust, ASU for Stefanie. After the coffee break, you're going to, just arrived actually from UAE, is the Minister of Artificial Intelligence, I believe the only one in the world. He is just having a coffee now, and he'll join us at 1 o'clock. Preceding him will be Matific on the immersive learning of mathematics, the overall view of education of life from Canon, and Classera, our other Diamond partner. Thank you very much for your support. And just on that point, if many of you, like me, travel with a spare phone, and as soon as you arrive in country are looking for a SIM card, Omantel, our partner, they have a stand outside in the coffee area, free SIM cards, free airtime if you need them, and we'll be back here for midday until lunchtime. Thank you very much to all our speakers. Thank you. Scott Smith is the Vice President of Matific, and we'll talk about the power of critical thinking, immersive education in mathematics, followed by Shadi Bakhour from Canon, who will lead us on an overall education for life picture. Then we'll have a Q&A session with His Excellency Omar bin Sultan Al Alama, who's the Minister of Artificial Intelligence from the UAE, followed by Mohammed Al Madani talking about reshaping learning from Classera, and finally a discussion on TEVT. I know it was briefly alluded to this morning, and it's always important to know what people have to say about TEVT from GIZ, the German Cooperation Agency, and then we'll be nicely relaxed for lunch. Let's give a warm welcome to Scott Smith from Matific. Scott.
Greetings, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests. It's an honor to be here today talking with you about the M in STEM. And as you know, the M stands for mathematics, which I'm sure for everyone in this room was your favorite subject when you were in school. Is that right? Maybe for some, but for many, mathematics actually was not their favorite subject. It was maybe much further down in the list. So we at Matific have a program that's specifically designed to immerse students into really fun, dynamic, engaging activities at the primary school level. And it's really oriented around helping to develop and empower their critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, so that by the time they get to the ages of 13, 14 years old in their school careers, that they are ready to take on some of the more complex mathematical problems that they're going to be seeing. So what we need more of this. We need more students going into these fields, these STEM careers. Architects, being scientists, doctors, programmers, the engineers, statisticians, and the list goes on and on and on. Not saying that we need every single student to be going and pursuing these fields, but we do need a lot more. It's these fields in STEM that are going to be the economic drivers for many economies, many countries around the world. And so we need to make sure that we're filling those jobs, and all the jobs that are going to be coming in the future. Many of those jobs that we don't even know what they are yet are going to require a very strong foundation in numeracy skills. What we have today, when you take a look at the primary school classroom, out of maybe 40 to 50 students, and if you were to follow those students all the way through to the point where they're going to be going to university and then going to get a job, out of a class of 40 primary school students, there's only a few that are actually going on and pursuing these types of careers. What we have is, all around us, is a global mathematics education crisis. And there's a few different factors that are going into this. I'll just highlight a couple of them. From our view, again, our company specifically spends time at the primary school level, so grades 1 through 6. At this level, most of the teachers are generalists. Some countries it might be different, but just generalizing across the country, across the world, most of these teachers are going to be generalists, and they're specialized in they receive their training to be teachers. They did not receive a specialization in mathematics. And what this leads to is an overemphasis on teaching procedures and less on teaching the conceptual understanding of mathematics. Teaching procedures is good, and it's something, the skill and drill, the practice, it's a very important part of mathematics education. But if there's an overemphasis on this, you start to lose the ability for the students to have a true passion and a true interest in the subject. And it starts to erode at their interest in wanting to do that those types of studies. And what happens is when the students are just learning procedures over and over and over again in this repetition manner, it's a rote learning, they're not learning problem-solving skills, they're not using critical thinking abilities, but the outcome is that there's an increase in mathematics anxiety. And it's this mathematics anxiety that tends to be one of the root causes for children not wanting to go on and pursue the careers in STEM. In our work, we work closely with ministries of education on every single continent in the world and have had many conversations with policymakers and ministers about where are they putting their investment dollars in STEM. A lot of the investment dollars are going into STEM programs at the higher education level. Sometimes it is at the secondary level, and there's definitely programs that are happening at the primary school level. But when I start hearing about what those actual exact initiatives are, it's like, building science labs, introducing robotics kits into schools, creating coding boot camps, and all kinds of things like that. After these conversations go on, I ask them specifically, what kind of innovation are you bringing to the mathematics classroom at the primary school level? What types of new tools are you bringing to teachers at the primary school level? Again, what kinds of innovation? And almost always the answer is, well, we've revised the curriculum, or we've introduced some new textbooks, and maybe there is a new philosophy that we're trying to implement across the country. But it very rarely actually involves leveraging the type of education technology that's available today to help facilitate this type of transformation. And when we heard from Patrick earlier, the literacy, numeracy skills, and scientific understanding being the building blocks to children's economic earning power in the future, if we're not making these big investments, and if we're not making these types of investments into mathematics, you really lose the STE part of the equation. So I was visiting a country at some point last year, and I was meeting with some people from the government, and I said how at Matific, we help support STEM learning initiatives. And they were like, we don't understand, how are you guys helping support STEM? I was like, we're the M in STEM. We're exactly that. And so that's how I came up the tagline for today's talk. We're the M in STEM, and without it, again, you're really losing out on all these investments that you're putting forward to try and get more students to go into those fields. So the current way of learning math is students get workbooks, and inside those workbooks, they have lots of these, lots of word problems. Inside those workbooks, they have lots and lots of worksheets. And that's what they get sent home to do. Lots of times, that's what they're doing in school. And it's these worksheets that are just reinforcing the procedural way of learning mathematics. And so it's no wonder why over a few years, you start to have students with this type of reaction whenever the teacher says, okay, bring out your math books. Now it's time to start learning, and let's do some exercise and learn some new skills. Well, a few years ago, enter education technology, which is going to be a fantastic solution to it all. Well, the reality is, when you look closely at a lot of the ed tech solutions, All they've done is they've taken what was done in print in a workbook, and all they've done is just digitize it and put it online, and now it's auto-graded, and it saves the teacher some time. But when you really look at the core of what the kids are doing online, it's just more worksheets. But now the computer can auto-generate worksheets over and over and over again, and we're left with the same result. Only now we're actually building mathematics phobia via the computer, which is a big problem that we want to try to avoid, because the computer can have the potential of just really turning the kids away from maths. So the Matific way. Our company, I'm going to show you some examples of these immersive activities here in a moment. But all the thousands of activities that Matific has built and designed all follow these 10 key pedagogical principles. And it's these 10 key pedagogical principles that are the underlying foundation to actually raising students' interest level in mathematics, getting them to be confident in the subject, and getting them to actually be like little mathematicians that we want them to be. I'll show you a couple examples to illustrate this. So one of the pedagogical principles is conceptual understanding. I pre-recorded these games before I came to the presentation, but this is all hands-on. This game is teaching the concept of parity. So if I was to ask you the question, what is an even number? Most in the audience would say a number ending in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. But parity is also understanding and being able to identify if there's a collection of pairs, then that's an even. If there's a one odd, then if you're not able to create a collection of pairs, then that would be odd. We're not asking the students here to count the birds to determine whether it ends in even or odd. We're teaching the conceptual understanding of the parity. And so here I can see that there's one bird that isn't paired with any others, so I know that this formation, this group, the answer was odd. We do have plenty of those types of activities that teach the more procedural way, but this is one example of how we're trying to teach the conceptual understanding of this. This concept of parity is really important because it sets up for a few years later when the students begin to learn divisibility. And so this is one of our other pedagogical principles, is this notion of seeding ahead and spiral learning. And so we're exposing them in this way. So another one of the pedagogical philosophies of Matific and leveraging the technology that's available to us today is this particular principle that we have, which is providing adaptive and personalized feedback. So in this game here, this little robot fell into this factory, and he's kind of on these steel beams, and we're given, and if you look in the top left corner, we're given a complementary angle. And so we need to be able to tell that robot which angle to turn in order to continue and proceed. So here the complementary angle is 127 degrees. But now I'm going to make some mistakes. So at Matific, we follow a 3 wrong answer philosophy. We allow the students to make a mistake the first time. And when they make a mistake, you'll see there was no big red X or nothing detrimental that's going to affect their confidence or anything. They just made a mistake. So we give them another try again. And on this second try, I'm going to be wrong again. So after 2 wrong answers, now we're going to give the student a hint. Hint that's related to this particular problem, so reminding them that half of a circle is 180 degrees. If your complementary angle is 127, hopefully they're able to figure out how to do that calculation. Here I'll make a mistake again. So making errors and making mistakes in mathematics is critical to the learning process, and it's really, really important that when students are making those errors, that they're receiving personalized feedback that's going to help guide them along the way. Students, when they play Matific activities, it's a safe place for them to fail. It's a safe place for them to experiment, to try new things. And if you ever watch a child playing a video game, what happens when their character dies? Or what happens when what they tried did not work? What do? They just try again. And they keep trying, they keep experimenting, and so we've developed these games to provide them with a very similar experience. So in this next example I'll show you is around adding multi-digit numbers. What I have on the screen here, this is the common way that pretty much all of us would have taught. It's the standard place value addition algorithm, where you're doing addition such as this, carrying the ones across and so on, which is great. But if this is the only thing that you're teaching the students to be like little automatons that are just doing these calculations in this manner. One of our pedagogical principles is to help bring the students along from the concrete to the abstract. In this game that I'm playing here, this is, it's a multi-digit addition game, but it's showing the students that there's 10 pieces of candy. I just filled them into the jar, and it's hard to see in the audience, but then the jar gets labeled with a 10. So the student can see there's 10 objects in that jar, and that jar, so that, in an abstract way, 10 represents those 10 individual objects. So in this game, keep going, I'll be able to see that there's 20 blue pieces of candy and 20 red pieces of candy, which would be 40. But there's another way of doing multi-digit addition. The other way is to break apart 223 plus 335 and actually add these by their place value, and then use the kind of an algebraic approach of adding 300 plus 50 plus 8, which having an understanding of this type of approach actually helps support the students when they're learning in the standard algorithmic way. And then finally, in Matific, we also have all of the typical type of worksheet type problems that the students would have to go through. So this progression, going from concrete to abstract, is very, very important, because many cases where the stress and anxiety comes from for students is when the teacher makes a leap from the concrete too quickly to the abstract, too fast for the students, and they're living in this abstract world before they really had a firm understanding in the concrete. So for every single skill that would be in the mathematics primary school curriculum, we have developed a series of activities that go through this progression of the concrete to the abstract. So a little bit just about Matific. We work in over 50 countries around the world. The program has been localized to be curriculum aligned in all of those 50 countries. And the program is also available in over 35 different languages. And we also, like I mentioned earlier, we work with the ministries of education on practically every single continent, and we have a range of projects that are taking place, ranging from really small pilots that are isolated to certain cities and certain municipalities, ranging to entire nationwide implementations of the program, and all being able to provide data and information back to the ministries to be able to show the effectiveness of how Matific is truly raising numeracy scores. We win lots of awards in the education technology space since we've been around. Some of the most recent awards we've won just last year, or 2019, this year, we won the best formative assessment solution from a group called the Cody Awards in the United States. We also won the best game-based curriculum solution, best educational app, and our list kind of continues to go on and on and on. So we're very proud of those. The power of the program is that it's available anytime, anywhere, any place. It's kind of a catchphrase, but we definitely live by that at Matific. The program is accessible for students. They all get a username and password. That login allows them. This is the first. Do we have an emergency, or are we good? Okay. Or was that my cue to get off stage? Okay, so Matific works on all devices. It works offline. It works in all settings. So we have Matific being used right now in some parts of the world where the schools, the government schools, they don't have anything technology-wise. They might have one computer with a projector that's shared amongst the teachers, and that's it. And we have Matific being used in places like that. We also have Matific being used quite well in places where you've got in-classroom technology from the interactive smart boards, computer labs, and things of that nature. I'll highlight just a couple examples. For example, in Argentina, this picture was taken where at a school that has a classroom set of tablets that's shared amongst the teachers at school. So what this teacher's done is they brought the tablets in. The teacher is the one person sitting in the top, kind of at the top part of the screen there. He's sitting down, and what he's doing, he's actually broadcasting the same game to all the devices. So he just got done teaching his skill. Now he said, okay, now let's practice this skill using Matific. And he's broadcasting that out to their devices right there in the room. In the Ukraine, practically every government school in Ukraine has an interactive smartboard, which most teachers just use the interactive smartboards for as a projection tool. In Ukraine, they're actually having students come to the front of the class and using the hands-on learning by doing type of nature of the program and actually having the students practice in front of their classmates. In Tamil Nadu, India, we just completed a project pilot with the government there. We had 23,000 government school students from 3 rural cities in the state. And we asked those students to take a survey before the pilot and after the pilot. And there's just simple yes/no questions. So I'll highlight a couple. I want to learn maths. 33% of students said before the pilot yes to that question, and that number jumped to 64% after the pilot. And the pilot was only from February to June 2019. Or, I enjoy maths homework. Only 23% of the students said yes to that question before the pilot. After the pilot, the number jumped up to 60%. Or, maths is terrible. Over half the students responded yes, maths is terrible before our pilot there, and that number dropped down to 33%. And finally, a little bit closer to here in Saudi Arabia, we've partnered with, signed an agreement with the Tatweer Company for Educational Services, and what we're doing is we're providing in the Matific program via the Ain National Education Portal to all students across the entire country. And it's set up in such a way that the students are able to use Matific in a self-study learning mode, but all of that work has been being reported back to at the ministry level so that they can see the progress that the students are having against the curriculum. The Tatweer Educational Company also did a thorough review, quality assurance review of all of our contents, and also mapped it to the Saudi curriculum and textbooks. So getting started with Matific is quite easy, and this is one of the offers that I'd like to make to all of you here today who are looking after your government schools at the primary school level. Happy to extend the offer of doing a pilot like we're doing in so many other countries around the world. Our view, we'll give it to you for free. You get a chance to see how it works. We want to be able to provide lots of information back to you to show the effectiveness of the program. Along with that, we employ local staff to be able to run professional development training. Some of that's done virtually, some of that's done in person. Point I want to make is getting started with Matific is quite easy. Many times we're able to get a pilot up and running in approximately 2 months. So I'd be happy to speak to you a little bit more about that during individual meetings, or my booth is in the back there. So if we want more of today's primary school students to be here where this scientist is sitting, more of them in 20 years, well, we really need to empower today's generation to develop a true passion for mathematics and be able to set them up for very successful futures. So thank you, and I believe turn it over to questions.
Thank you. We have a few minutes for some comments or questions. We are in time.
In time, yes.
We are under pressure always about time, but there is no emergency on time. Then the sign was only a test. Okay, there is any question? Or there is one, please just introduce yourself and question or
Muscat
comment.
University. Thank you very much for the very interesting presentation. But my question is how far we can go beyond this. Like, you know, in the elementary school, the math is very basic. So the further we progress in education, the math would become more complicated. How can still we eliminate the panic that students have in terms of mathematics? Like when we say statistics, I teach business. When I say statistics, students panic. So how far this is applicable in further stages? Thank you.
Sure, very good question. So our view on this is that our program's covering the mathematical skills that the students would be encountering up to year 6, year 7, which does include some basic probability, basic statistics, geometry, algebra, and so we have these types of activities that go all the way through to that particular level. I think one of the biggest things, which I mentioned earlier, was just this, the fear that students have in mathematics is that they never maybe fully understand conceptually early on some basic principles. And if they go from from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, and there's some gaps that they have there. As each time they go from one grade to the next grade, those continue just to compile against each other. So by the time you get a student who is maybe in year 7, just the word of mathematics completely scares them. And that's why for us, we are focused specifically at this age group, because yes, you're right, at the earliest ages, mathematics is pretty easy. But as the students start to transition where things become more abstract, and things are becoming, in many curriculums, abstract much quicker, that's the point where students start to turn away and be fearful of the subject. And we're hoping with this type of approach, combined with really good teaching, that we'll be able to propel the students all the way through, so that by the time they get to secondary school and university level mathematics, that they feel very confident in themselves.
Thank you.
I am Iman Al-Lawati from Ministry of Transport. I'm a parent, so I have a kids that use a program. It's Mathletics. It's an online program, but I feel the worksheets are still very important because they are using these Mathletics as a game. I am not sure if they got the concept behind if they wrote it right or wrong when in the game. When they have the game, they are focusing on how I pass that level, not focusing on the concept behind how did I pass that level. So I feel that worksheets is still very important to enhance the game. Plus, I think it's like more screen for the children. So I think we have to do like timings for the children to use those applications or those websites because it's more screen and it's like damaging their eyes, their health. So how did you tackle these things? Do you have like timings to use it or it's technology. We have to use technology, but not too much.
Good, very good point that you make. And so actually the company that you were referring to, it's one of the reasons why we took our approach in designing Matific, because any company can come around and just create lots of worksheets. It's pretty easy to do. And you can put a wrapper around it, which is a game. You have to answer a question in the game, and you have to answer a question in the worksheet, and then if you get it correct, something happens in the game. That's part of the reason why with our progression at Matific is we have these pedagogical philosophies, which I put on the screen earlier, and we want the students to be put into little virtual labs to experiment, to develop problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, and to design things in such a way where they are able to practice the conceptual reasoning behind the underlying part of the skill. And so while we do also have just as many worksheets as that company has, we're one of the unique companies in the marketplace that actually does take this other approach. Now, your other point just around screen time, you're correct. Screen time is a concern for all parents, and we hear this all around the world. The average amount of time that students are using Matific globally is usually about 2 hours per week. Maybe an hour of that might be at school, and maybe an hour and a half of that is taking place at home. And so that's typically the general amount of time, and we do definitely have some students who get onto the system and play and play and play, and they just don't know how to stop. Well, this is where parenting comes in, and you just have to be able to rein those devices in from them and put some time limits to it.
Thank you. I always have to be careful not intervening in the debate. Please, there is Dominic.
Dominic Savage, Education World Forum. Scott, at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about one of the issues being that so many primary school teachers are generalists, and one understands the necessity of that. But what follows from that, obviously, is the issue of how confident are those teachers in their teaching of mathematics, and we all know that children respond to confidence or lack of confidence in their teachers. So I'm just wondering what you can say about what your programs and what the company can do to assist that development of teachers to create the full circle, as it were. Thanks,
Dominic. Good question. So at Matific, we understand that this dynamic exists where there's just so many generalist teachers out there, and that's perfectly fine. We want to be able to provide them with a resource that's going to really help them become better teachers in the mathematics classroom. And I can speak from experience being able to sit in the classroom, and when a teacher pulls up a Matific activity that is around a skill that teacher has typically maybe struggled or been not very confident at teaching in the past, but because Matific and its design as being a really fun and dynamic game approach, when that teacher pulls it up, he or she in the classroom has all the students' attention. And that game is actually something dynamic and immersive for the teacher, but it's also going to be something that's going to hold the students' attention. So our activities have been designed in such a way that are a little bit different from a company that just does worksheets. It's also designed to be an in-class teaching tool. For in many different languages, we have thousands of teaching tips. So if I'm a teacher and I pull up one of the Matific activities, so if you think about the parity game that I played earlier, there's an entire long section about parity that's been written up. And it articulates to the teachers the differences between how you teach an odd or even number and what parity is. So we're providing a lot of in the regular course of a term, some ongoing pedagogical training for the teachers that they may otherwise have never received or have maybe forgotten from their time in training. But we have lots of other resources that we provide to teachers as well. But Matific is really kind of going to be a resource for in class in those settings that helps boost their own confidence and makes mathematics something engaging for them. And I think we have one other question there.
Thank you. The last one. Thank you. Please. Or comment.
It's actually a comment to the lady that is a parent about education and screen time. One of the things, a study that was done in the US in a county called Naperville, in the school system, it was how do you improve math scores and how do you do it really quickly in math and science. And one of the things they found out is that if they did an exercise with the kids in the morning at 80% of their maximum heart rate, cardiovascular exercise in the morning, and then they taught them math and science, the scores went up significantly. I mean, statistically, highly significant score difference. And this is technology that is available to every kid, everywhere, to every school. It requires nothing but exercise in the morning and then teaching math and science. That data is available. It's the statistical study that was done in Naperville, and for the parents that are worried about screen time, I would suggest that you do that. Because ultimately, if we look at ourselves as humans 100 years ago, on average, statistically, we used to walk around 10 miles a day. I don't know how much that is in kilometers, about 12, 13 kilometers. And now, we tell the kids to sit on the chair for 8 hours, learn by listening to someone, and not to move. And we're feeding them 10 times the amount of sugar that we did 100 years ago. So we are wiring them up on the sugar, making them sit down and making them do math problems without actually exercising. So I would suggest the exercise. Thank you.
Thank you. The last word for you, because now we are over time.
Just again, thank you all for being in attendance and giving me the opportunity here to present to you our passion for primary school mathematics. And again, please take an opportunity to stop by and say hello, and we'd be interested in carrying on the conversation then.
Thank you. Okay, it's fine, it's fine.
Entertain that.
Okay, thank you. Now we move to the next presentation. I call Mr. Shadi Bakhour, which is the business director of Canon Middle East. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here among all your excellencies and the experts of the education industry. I would like, first of all, to position myself on the stand or on the podium by saying maybe perhaps we are the only international company listed in the Forbes today that is presenting to you. And this is back to the fact that you have to consider me standing here as your customer. You're not my customers today. You have all the students that we interview. and you are the who fuel our labor market with students. So today, I would like to say that my presentation is to cover up what we see, a shift in the way we are addressing education today. 10 years ago, I would stand here and I would talk about the accessibility, how we can enroll more students to schools. But now, we're talking more about quality learning, which is more important because we have a bulge of schools and universities now in our region. And this is a great positive that I see, but quality is something that we need to raise. Not only this, teachers as well, how we can enhance their potentials to be effective teachers and school leaders. This is important. This is what I'm going to cover today. Canon is coming. Today I'm standing here representing the private sector. And the private sector is not any less than contributing to the education sector. We have to contribute to this sector since we are here. As an international company, and many international companies, they have the corporate social responsibility department, which part of our profit, we are a profitable organization, unlike you are a non-profitable organizations. Part of our profit, we give it and we spend it back where we live. And this is part of our kiyose, which is living and working together. Kiyose is a Japanese word that means living and working together for the common good. And this we give back to the community that we live in. In Canon Middle East, we chose that we channel part of our profit back to education. So we have been working with schools for so many years, and I don't know if these are the right slides, but we are close to 1 billion prints, above 1 billion prints we do in the whole of MENA region. We work with more than 3,000 schools and universities, so we work very closely with schools over the past years. We also would like to highlight that we try to digitize some of the volumes that we usually schools and university prints into digitizing it. We only were able to digitize 5.4% from the total print volumes that we do. This is a very small number that we are pushing hard to increase. This is on that side. On the other part, we also do a lot of internship. We recruit directly from universities. As you know, international companies, they like the learning curve to be as fast as possible for those who join them. We do recruit directly from universities. We do internships. We build school. And we built one in Ghana that was 5 years ago. And finally, we do scholarships for talented students. For any education market or for any labor market, within the region, education is, how to get back to this? Education plays a big role. And education actually is a gateway to the labor market. And in the labor market, it's changing at a very fast pace. And the question that we always ask is our education system prepared for our students to fit in such a market? And do we know that how we enhance this labor market? To give an example, in the MENA region is utilizing 30% less of its female capacity than the global average, while women in our region are highly educated. Their potential, and they can contribute highly to the market, to the labor market that we are in, but it's not fully deployed. If the region is to grow in the coming years, enabling women to participate in the economy is of importance. So the labor market today, we can see a lot of male in it, that's right, and we have a lot of push that we have this equality from in our organizations, and we are working on this, but at the same time, education is the fuel for this. The second part is students. students, are students today same as the one 10 years ago? Is the current education system meets their expectations and mindset? And by this, let me show you an interesting study done by the World Economic Forum for the Future of the Jobs report, showed some shocking information. The list shows on your left-hand side that jobs will be redundant, these jobs will be redundant by the 2022, that's 3 years from now. And we are talking about the jobs that will be replaced like the accountant, auditors, and financial analysis. These jobs will be replaced by new roles. Are we preparing our students for this list? Our obligation is to come close to universities and the need to react to those needs that we have today as international company. Young people all over the world invest in their education with the belief that it will lead them to a better jobs and greater opportunities. But in some part of the region, education has become a source of frustration because it is not delivering the skills young people need in today's world. I see it when I travel and we do interviews, and we tend to dig deep on why this is happening. And last thing we need is to see that our children living in the Middle East earning a university degree that will lead to unemployment. And I know that a lot of governments are taking great measures to overcome this. There are 4 specific technological aspects that are affecting this space today. And these are 4 main advances that are advancing at a very high pace: high speed, mobile internet, AI, big data, and cloud services. This is happening and is causing a skill shift in the way we need to prepare our students. We can see that within the set of companies surveyed, representing over 15 million workers in total, current estimates which suggest a decline of close to 1 million jobs in the coming years. But these million jobs that will be eliminated will be replaced by 1.7 million jobs, and this is a good news. Now, we need to also consider that in the coming years, 42% of our workforce will need to have a complete skill shift. It's completely shift in their skills than what we are facing today. And the workforce as well that currently working and the 54% remaining will need to have or require an upskill in their current skills. Right now, young Arabs below the age of 25 years constitute nearly half of our region's population. By 2030, 10 years from now, this number is projected to rise even further, and a significant share of this young population will be working. So if I take you through those statistics, this young generation of 25 years and less, we call them Generation Z. While some see the huge Z bulge in the MENA region as a threat, we must see it as an opportunity, especially true for young women who achieve significantly higher outcomes in learning assessment than younger men, and who outnumber males at universities but have twice the unemployment rate of their male peers. This is alarming numbers that we are watching and seeing. But be it a female or a male, Generation Z is different. Why? Today, students are tech savvy. They order Uber rather than waiting for a cab. They ask Siri rather than typing a search on Google. They also stream shows on Netflix rather than waiting for the next episode to go on air. Today, students are living in a system based on an on-demand service creation, which is customized and personalized for their needs. Probably in the near future, having a class on a specific time or a specific place might be irrelevant. And we have heard how online learning is increasing. The question now is the education system. Does it meet the mindset and expectations of this generation? This is a question that we always tend to ask. In our MENA region, 10% of the country's budgets today goes to education. This is a good number. In Saudi Arabia, it might hit up to 21% in the latest study we saw. So there is a good investments taking place by our governments to enhance and grow education within our region. But what we have seen, because of this importance of education and because of such dynamics around us, we decided at Canon more than 3 years ago to deeply study the education system through surveys and workshops with different educational institutes in the Middle East. The outcomes were as follows. 1, improving the satisfaction level of students and parents through offering new services is highly needed. 2, re-engineering different processes to improve governance, security, and control is mandatory. A strong example of this is the examination process that you run. 3, strong need to automate and digitize. Again, another example of that sounds simple is the grading process. We found the grading period in which teachers grade the students eats considerable time from teachers. This time can be invested in preparing for their classes, spend more time on research. I was doing my EMBA 10 years ago in one of the universities, and my professor just told me, my only pressure that I have is that I don't do enough research. And today, this is something that we need to enhance. Nonetheless, when grades are out to students, and this is something I've witnessed, often the challenge starts. When the results are out, or the grades are out, the teacher's time even increases because students tend to challenge those grades and tends to send emails to the teachers or professors, asking them why and how did I get this mark instead of that mark. And I'm telling you this because my wife is a professor. And during this period of grading, I tend to be very, very calm at my home. So it is important to mention this. Last but not least, we found that each institute holds a lot of data about students and trends. And hence, there's a growing need for robust analytical tools that could help decision makers. The what-if tools is very important for us today, and these tools are really needed with all the data that today you have within your institutes. After collecting all these informations and findings, we formed a project team of 30 people, and this team discussed how to make use of such data, and we concluded that we have to create a program to improve the awareness of how to adopt technology that can help improving the quality of education and improve the satisfaction levels of students and teachers. So we came up with a program called Education for Life. التعليم يثري الحياة. Education for Life is a program targeting schools in the Middle East. This program started in 2017, and I will refer to it as an EFL, Education for Life, EFL program, aimed to power the school ecosystem by providing simple and effective solutions that would benefit the teachers, the administration, and the students, the whole ecosystem of the education sector. Our team also worked closely on assessing the full student experience. In our business, we have customer experience, we have employee experience. We found out in your ecosystem, you have student experience. The student experience throughout this, it's a long journey. even longer than a customer experience. It's from the moment the school would reach out to students and their parents to enroll them into the school till the time they graduate. The outcomes led to a discovery of more than 25 different touch points. And these touch points varies from marketing communication to the back office work of the administration to the student services and classrooms. These touch points, we took them and formulate them into 25 different solutions. And these solutions are varies as well to omni-channel communication solutions between parents and schools and teachers and students, digitizing documents and assignments and homeworks, augmented reality we brought into those solutions, and we have translated those solutions into only 9 countries in the Middle East. The outcomes were brilliant. And I'm going to show you this at the end of the presentation. Once we saw the outcomes and the benefits provided to schools, we decided to take our next step. And this thing where we have started to go into the higher education. We are now, from this podium today, we are launching a new phase of the program. We call it Education for Life Plus. The plus stands for applications and solutions that helps universities and ministries to provide a better, tailored, and customized solution-driven to overcome challenges those universities and ministries face. Under this Education for Life umbrella, we have brought 2 aspects. One is the campus services, and I'm going to talk about the campus services. The other part of it is we run shows at universities in which we prepare the students in expecting the unexpected when he goes out of the gates of the university. By means, how he should prepare his CV for an international company today to pick it out of the 1,000 CVs that it reaches us. What skills he needs to be enhanced with. Some programs about international marketing and sales. These are shows, talk shows that we take students with. But the other one, which is the campus services, is designed for the ministries and the universities administration to go through. This campus services entails 4 pillars. And these pillars is a platform where we cover the portal part, the security of examination part, the predictive analytics, and the auto-grading. And I'm going to cover each one of them quickly. So just to take you through the portal is very distinctive by itself, in which simply easy-to-use digital touchpoint or website that offers staffs and students unlimited choices of services based on the campus offering. So it depends on your offering how we integrate those programs. It can vary from digital wallet management to universal ID for access control and identification across the campus and the locations, managed print services, digital library, all of this this portal encompass. The second pillar is the Canon secure examination process. Is an end-to-end solution that automates the full examination process regardless of the size and the geography of distribution. This offers a closed-loop control which eliminates error and everything is traced. By providing a dynamic content, we control even fraud. Digital ready also will allow you can generate digital copy of the exams for special needs. And the process enables us to conduct auto-grading and digital archiving. To come to auto-grading, it's an extension of the examination process, the auto-grading, and also allow us to digital archiving pillar as well. This will allow us, by lowering the human interaction. This solution will ensure highest confidentiality for the grading cycle, full transparency, and most of all, good analytical tools that you can use to analyze what the student behavior and what their numbers or grades are. Finally, we end up with predictive analytics. The final model is said to be a unified solution for automated reporting and predictive analytics. Now, through this, if I want to show you the total illustration of the end-to-end dimension of this program, of the campus services, it can go that sophisticated, but this is just a blueprint of it. We are rich with human capital, and this is a gift we all value, but utilizing this gift by honoring its skill is key for the future of the economic growth. Smart education is now inevitable, and I would like to show you how we took you through, how we took this program through in the Middle East region. Please play the video.
والحلو بهاي الفعالية إنها كانت عم تشمل شو القطاع الخاص بيقدر يقدم وشو هن عم بيشوفوا بيقدروا يساعدوا بعملية التعليم، لأن التكنولوجيا صارت داخلة بالتعليم.
تجربة رائعة اليوم، اللي شفناه بيعكس الإبداع اللي عمليته كانون اليوم في هذه المسألة. احنا بالأردن بحاجة لمثل هذه الفاعلية.
اليوم نشكر مجموعة كانون وبإدارة شركة الساير متمثلة في الأستاذ مبارك الساير على حضورهم هذا اللقاء وهذا المنتدى الذي قربوا لأهل الميدان بحضور شريحة كبيرة من المعلمين والمعلمات المهتمين في مجال التكنولوجيا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أشكر الزملاء في كانون على مشاركتهم اليوم في الجامعة في حفل الخريجين ومعرض الخريجين وجميع المنتجات الحقيقة التي تنتجها كانون هي مفيدة لأبنائنا الطلاب وأيضا مفيدة لأعضاء التدريس.
اليوم نحن في جامعة الملك عبد العزيز نقيم هذه الفعالية المصاحبة لحفل التخرج. هي فعالية التي يعني يحفل فيها أو تحتفل فيها الجامعة بالخريجين يأتون للاستلام زي التخرج استعدادا للحفل. ولأول سنة ولأول مرة في هذا العام نقيم معرض مصاحب لفخور بجامعتي، معرض فخور بجامعتي للخريجين، وكان على رأسهم راعي يعني هذه الفعالية ومعرض الخريجين معرض فخور بجامعتي شركة كانون التي شاركتنا بإبداعاتها المتميزة وأركانها الجذابة. أتت يعني بكل ما يعني لديها من إبداعات ومن هدايا، وقدمت وشاركتنا في تقديم هدية رائعة للخريجين، فأسعدتنا كثيرا. تعاوننا معهم كعمادة شؤون الطلاب، وكنا في وكالة شؤون الخريجين بالعمادة، تعاوننا معهم لإنجاح هذه الفعالية، فكانوا شريك نجاح فعلا وحقيقي.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if for the presentation and for the great program, and this really enjoying to see a big company, international companies investing and sensitive to the education and skills problem and challenge. We have not much time, but if there is one or two questions or comments, very quick.
My name is Kamil Al-Soti from Ministry of Transport and Communications. But my comment is, I don't represent my employer in my comment, and my comment is general about the topic of today. It is not specific to the previous presentation. What I see is that there is a competition between the nations of the world to produce and breed the best of human robots that don't have any compassion, don't have any empathy, they can't communicate with each other. So what do you think about this idea, about this future, about the coming generations? Thank you.
Thank you. We cannot go that far that there's no compassion, no empathy to that extent. We have seen in Patrick's presentation earlier today that students still, even if we want to go harshly on digital, students still today needs to draw, needs to have the interaction with the paper, needs to bring out their feelings manually, if not digitally. So we are going through a very disruptive phase at the moment, and this phase will normalize. Everybody wants to be tech savvy, everybody wants to be the leader, everybody wants to make best out of this technology, and we are all struggling to get there. But eventually, things will normalize. And we have seen it in our business world, where we used to, I take an example of Canon. We used to take pictures in color, in black and white, in the 60s and the 50s. Then color came. Then after the phase of color was there and everybody utilizing color pictures, you still see up to today black and white pictures at home. We love to come back to the basics, but things will normalize and things will get back to where it is. So compassion, yes, things are moving because we are in a disruptive world at the moment. Everybody has heads to the phone. We understand this, but I trust that things will normalize. We're human beings at the end of the day.
شكرا. سفير الجزائر هنا في سلطنة عمان. شكرا. أن سفير الجزائر هنا في سلطنة عمان. أود في البداية أن أشكر السلطات العمانية خاصة منها وزارة التعليم العالي لتنظيم هذا المنتدى الهام الذي أتمنى له كل التوفيق والنجاح. سؤالي هو كالتالي: المتدخل تطرق في كلمته إلى نقطة هامة جدا، وهي ضرورة إعطاء عناية كبيرة للتعليم. تحدث عن الكمية لكن تنعدم النوعية. الملاحظ أنه في الوقت الحاضر كثير من الدول تشتكي من نقص في مستوى دراسة التلاميذ وحتى الطلاب. السؤال: هل المشكل يكمن في المناهج التعليمية والنظام التعليمي، أم في مهارات وقدرات ومؤهلات المعلمين الذين لم يملكون المؤهلات اللازمة لإرسال رسائلهم البيداغوجية ولجذب اهتمام الطلاب، أم المشكل يكمن في الطلبة أنفسهم الذين تنقصهم الرغبة في الدراسة وغير متحمسين، أم المشكل يكمن أيضا في تطور التكنولوجي والعيش السهل للتلاميذ. كل الأشياء الآن متوفرة للطلاب. سؤالي: ما هو الحل للتوافق بين الكمية والنوعية، وهل فيه إمكانية استدراك الوضع؟ وشكرا.
شكرا لسؤالك. إذا قدرت تتابع آخر سؤالك اللي هو كيف الكم، كيف ممكن نواجه هالكم الهائل من المعلومات، إذا فهمت سؤالك بالضبط، لأنه اضطريت روح بعد ما وقف، فمنشان هيك فكرت السؤال مش موجه لنا. على كل حال في كتير المعلوماتية موجودة بشكل مهول جوا الجامعات والمدارس، ولكن عم ينقصنا نستعمل الاناليتيكال تولز. إذا بعرف الاناليتيكال تولز بالعربي، اوكي، اللي هن هيدول التولز او الاناليتيكال تولز هدول اليوم ما تكاد تكون معدومة ببعض المدارس، وتكاد تكون موجودة على نطاق ضيق كمان ببعض المدارس حسب ما شفنا. هيدي لازم تستخدم بأكثر لنقدر نعرف كيف الطالب يتعامل مع مواد معينة، كيف الأستاذ يتعامل مع الطالب بطرق معينة. هيدول اليوم نحن تكاد تكون كتير ضيق هذا المجال عنا في مدارسنا وفي جامعاتنا. فمطلوب إنه يكون عنا predictive analytical tools مثل ما نحن سميناها اليوم، وهيدي بتساعدنا لناخد the right decisions أو ناخد القرارات الصح خلال الكوريكولم اللي عم نبنيه جوا الجامعات والمدارس. عم بحكيك من منطلق كمان إنه أنا بقعد على أحد البوردز تبعيت المدارس في دبي، وكمان بسمع للتشالنجز تبعيتهم اللي عم بتصير داخل المدرسة. enrollment أو جذب الطالب من أهم عوامل من أهم الأشياء اللي المدارس والجامعات اليوم عم بيطلعوا لها، لأنه صار عندنا كتير مدارس، صار عندنا كتير جامعات، ولما يصير في عندنا ضغط، هذا اللي ما عم نقدر نعرفه اليوم. إذا عندنا analytical tools بنقدر نعرف لما يصير عندنا ضغط من enrollment of students، هيدا شيء جيد، لأنه هيدا بيخلينا اليوم نرفع من مستوى الجامعة أو المدرسة أو المؤسسة اليوم، كرمال نخليها أصعب لهالenrollment تصير، لناخد talent أو ناس بتالنت معين عالي كرمال اليوم to compete أو للنافس في المجتمع اللي نحن فيه. فبس اللي بقوله اليوم إنه analytical tools كتير مهمة نجيبها جوا وين المدارس ونساعد. نحن نفس الشيء عم نعمل جوا شركاتنا. Okay.
So I didn't want to say anything, but the point raised by the gentleman back there is very important. I think when he mentioned empathy and obviously to do with humanitarian aspects, and I think this is.
Can I see you, please? Where are you?
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So there are two aspects to this: understanding the other, respecting the other, accepting the other. One that has to do with the general education component that I talked about, which I think is essential at the undergraduate level, where the student gets the breadth in knowledge, not just the depth in the subject matter. And another, which is something that should be addressed at the administrative level at universities as well as schools, is to value diversity of the student body. You know, this should be, as far as I'm concerned, one of the major pillars of the strategic plan of educational institutions, whether it's schools or university, because when you spend an undergraduate, 3 or 4 years as an undergraduate student, and you mingle with one nationality, your own is one thing. When you mingle with 90 nationalities over these 4 years, you accept many things. You see perspective from a different, things from different perspectives. And basically, this is essential, in my opinion, for undergraduate programs.
True. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.